Roger, thanks for dropping by. Sunday chat today is going to be around the changing light. Basically, it's the month where it catches more people out than at any other time of year. At the other end of the season, the light's getting less and less and less. It's unlikely to do any harm, is it, when it's getting less? It's when it starts getting more. Now, obviously I'm in a certain part of the world. I think Bournemouth is around 50 degrees north, or maybe a bit 51, somewhere in between 50-51 degrees north. Obviously a similar line in the southern hemisphere exists, just a 6-month difference, you know, when one's winter, the other's summer, and all that sort of stuff. But this month, February, certainly in my part of the UK, the change is getting quite dramatic. We're up something like 3.5 minutes a day increase. Well, a quick bit of simple maths is 7 3s are 20. It's about 25 minutes a week. So, you know, getting up towards 15 minutes either end of the day. The day is stretching all the time. And the other thing that's important to note is to allow that to happen, the sun rises earlier and sets later. And in the middle bit, it's higher. Yeah? That's the bit that often catches people out. Now, if you've got plants in the house and the sun is at that angle, it comes so far into the room. When it's at that angle, it doesn't come so far in the room. So plants that may have got some nice early morning sun and appreciated it suddenly don't get it anymore. So you move the plant closer to the window so that it gets its early morning sun. There's another problem when it does that. It's higher. When it's higher, it's stronger. So just because they're not getting their early morning light, moving them into it might not be the best of ideas, because the strength is coming back. Slowly but surely the strength is coming back. And when I finish this video, in a couple of days' time, I need to play it to me, because I'm the one that gets caught out practically every year and ends up rushing to put my shade netting on what is the first sunny day after a week of rain or something like that. And I suddenly realise all my leaves are getting really hot. Yeah? So, yeah. At that rate of change, I mean, I think we're about 9.5 hours day length now, around now. And by the end of this month, it's nearly 11. That's a lot of change going on. And now you can see why it's classed as coming into the growing season. Yeah? These are the days that trigger the changes in the plants. Yeah? These are the days when they start thinking, conditions are getting better now. Now, if you've got artificial lights and you maintain your day lengths throughout the duller months, then you haven't got quite so much to worry about, apart from your bill. So what's your timer? Yeah? When we had less than 8-hour day lengths and you had your timer to give them an extra 4, yeah, well, now they don't need an extra 4, do they? Cut your lecky down. And by the time we get to the end of February and we're getting very close to that 11-hour day, people who do artificial lighting normally aim to try and give 12 hours total daylight. Now, if you're growing in a cellar or something or other, obviously the only light is your artificial lighting, and I'm sure you maintain it at roughly the same all year round. Might do your plant some good to vary it. Yeah? Keep it at 13, say, no, and then for 3 months of the year, knock it down to 11. Simulate, perhaps, what might happen in the wild. I don't know anyone that does that. There again, I don't know anyone who grows in a cellar. The people I know in the UK are either growing in the home, or in a conservatory, or in a greenhouse. They're certainly not growing outside. Not in the east of the country at the moment. They're under about 1 foot of snow and bitterly cold Siberian winds coming in. By the time it gets to here, it's fizzled out. It is very cold outside. There is a wind chill. It is coming in from the east. But I don't think the snow's going to come over this far. Lynn might get a little bit. She's right on the edge where Lynn lives. She's a bit farther east. She's right on the line where the snow looks like it's going to end. But as we head overnight and into tomorrow, the distinct area that's getting the worst of the snow today, that area is going to fragment. And instead of being, you know, an area, it's going to be lots of little fingers of snow, and some of those might come over here. So we might get some tomorrow. Get about 3 flakes and that'll be it, I expect. Anyway, so like day lengths, amount of light. Not only are the day lengths getting longer, getting up towards their maximum rate. I think the maximum rate of day length change is just under 4 minutes, about 3 minutes 50 seconds, something like that. And we're on 3 minutes 30 seconds now, so we're heading up to that fastest rate of change. And that's what's going to trigger the plants. They're going to blink and sort of think, oh hello, we're heading towards growing again. Better start thinking about doing some. When they start thinking about growing and start showing signs of it, you need to respond. That's the time your watering frequency might need to compress a bit and be a little more frequent. They've got longer days. Probably temperatures may start to go up a bit in the daytime, although in this country that don't always happen. We can still have a frost out in April and May, but they're odd. It's not prolonged, if you know what I mean, or not often. Yeah, watch your day length, and if your plants suddenly show signs of growing and start new growths coming out, or a burst of root growth or something, you respond accordingly. Respond with your plants. If they start kicking into growth, then they're going to need perhaps a bit more feed, or some feed if they haven't had any. I mean, you think we were looking at my resting dendrobiums, and there were a couple of those, although they all got a flush in that run, there was a couple might have benefited from a drop of feed because of the way that plant actually was at that point in time. They didn't get it, but to say, things in here tend to get a very bland treatment. They've been divided up into sets for watering frequency and feeding purposes. No other purposes, just that. And if it's this particular set's turn, then they're all going to get it. The only option in the winter is if they're still wet, they miss a turn. They don't get an extra one. Don't do any of that nonsense. Yeah, so at my particular latitude, we're getting up to, when we get to the 11 hours point, it's the major trigger. In between 11 and 13 is where virtually everything in here is going to be at its happiest. And as a consequence, daytime temperatures need to be better. That's my bit. Because if the old current bun isn't out, I doubt if my temperatures in here during the day, if I left everything without intervening, they wouldn't be that much different to the nighttime temperatures. That's not good enough. Once things start coming back into growth and get into that 11 to 13 hour slot, they need better daytime temperatures. They need that gap. It's important. Some of them just don't grow very well without that gap. Some of them, there are a few on the list, not mine, but on the lists, that won't bloom if they don't get that change. Yeah, they need the cooler nights to compare with the daytime. And if your daytime isn't increasing enough from your nighttime minimum, which you're probably maintaining with a heating system, yeah, then perhaps you need to add some extra heat in during the day as well, just to bump it up, which I will be doing. Give it another couple of weeks. I mean, at the moment, that new thermostat thing, because of the 2-degree differential, which is a pain, I wish it was only 1, I set that to 16 at night, which means it drops down to 14, kicks back up to 16, repeat all night long. And then at some point during the morning, normally about 9 o'clock, something like that, I come in and change the thermostat and I take it up to 19. That's 3 degrees difference. That's not a lot, but it does give them a bit of a lift during the day. If the sun comes out, it'll go on higher than that. I mean, the other day I think I had 24, 25 in here. You know, all these little things start triggering growth. But yeah, when we get to the end of the month sort of thing, the thermostat, instead of going up to 19 for the day, will probably go to 21, so that I've got a bigger difference. I won't increase the nighttime temperatures yet. Yeah, we need to get I usually wait for that to happen naturally. And there comes a point where the heater is not doing much overnight, at which point I start opening this door at bedtime, and the residual heat from the house basically stops the heater kicking in unless it's a really, really cold night. And I share the heat from the house to save this heater coming on, because once I go to bed I don't need the house warm. Okay, it uses a bit more heat in the morning getting it back up to warm again, but it's minor. So things are on the change. It's a nice time of year. I suspect if I went somewhere, which I can't do, I'm housebound, but I suspect there's snowdrops out all over the place. There might be some crocuses out. I don't know. I mean, and I'm not going out just to see. I have a snowdrop, one, and it's a giant. I don't know how it got in the garden. It was probably there from a long time ago, but it's just the one, and it's buried in amongst other stuff, and then and the flower just pokes up through the top on its own. Just the one. My daffodils are showing colour. The buds are just starting to keel over at the top. They're very early daffodils. They were bought for that purpose, to have a splash of colour before anything else comes out. So a week or so there may be some starting to open. I can trim some of those, bring them indoors, put them in a glass of water. They last very well indoors. Bring a bit of colour in. Talking of colour, tomorrow is the 8th, everything in bloom on the 8th, which is why there's a couple of plants in here you're not seeing today. I've even angled the camera so that you can't get a look at the nobile. That's for tomorrow. I'm saving it. But it has got several blooms fully open now, so we will have a good look at it tomorrow. And I must admit, those blooms, the size of those blooms is impressive. For you know, I mean, I've got other noblies in here. I've got quite a few in total. There, 1, 2, 3. Come on, there's more than that. Must be. I've got 4 or 5 in here somewhere, lurking, various places. Oh, there's another couple up there. They're younger ones. Yes, some people commented that when I did the winter resters, there were quite a few missing, like tortilli. Some the noblies were missing, but I did do those as a separate thing. But quite a few of those that were deemed missing are actually young plants. I'm not resting those to try and get them to bloom. In some cases, I'm just keeping them ticking over. I don't want to rest a young plant. The reason for the rest is to get the blooms in the main. I am going to do it one year. It might even be next winter. I'm going to try those that are deemed reluctant to bloom without the rest. I might actually try not resting them, because looking at some of the weather where some of them come from, not all of them, they don't get that cold in the winter really, and it's not as dry as some of the books say, you know, withhold water for 2.5, 3 months, none of that nonsense. So you sort of think, well, if it's not getting that cold, what constitutes this rest? Yes, it's a bit drier, but as temperature drops a bit, which it does, not necessarily a lot, but you get less temperature, the humidity relative is high. And with the mist and fog and the odd bits of drizzly rain, I mean, you don't get monsoon rains in those drier periods, but you get some. I don't think they're as dry as perhaps is implied in some of the old scrolls and scriptures and all that sort of cobblers. And nobody seems to be doing any work on it. You know, we haven't had a recent book written on, you know, the genus Dendrobium, for instance. Other genera have a drier in winter impression given as well. It's not just the Dendrobiums, it's just they've got the reputation for them, or a lot of them have. I mean, the actual species, Dendrobium nobile, that is written in many places. I mean, probably in 2 minutes I could find half a dozen different places where that is written, that if you don't cool that right down and keep it quite dry in the winter, it won't bloom at all. Well, I haven't got one. So I haven't tried it. I've got hybrid nobly types. And as a consequence, they may have other genera mixed in, which moves the goalposts. And maybe they're not resters like the impression we're given. So I know some people have said, oh, well, mine bloomed in autumn and they didn't get a rest in the summer. This is true. Some will bloom in the middle of winter, just as the rest is starting. So, you know, the hybrids do strange things, and a lot of people commented towards the end of last year that quite a few dendrobiums were playing up and blooming at odd times. So I don't know what was different about last year. We had a heat wave, same as the year before. And quite honestly, the amount of rainfall in the UK when you're growing somewhere like this is irrelevant. The only difference it makes is that when it's raining, the sun's not out, so it's duller. You know, long periods of lack of sunshine would make a difference, yes. But rainfall isn't going to make any flipping difference apart from that fact. It's obviously cloudy because it's raining. So, yes, the everything in bloom tomorrow is going to be a bit thin on the ground, but we do have a bit of a spectacle to show. One cattleya out, that one's not going to make it. A laelia out. It's not a lot, not this time of year. There's buds. We're thin on the ground on the old blooms. Do you know what? I might actually get the Restrepias out tomorrow, and we'll have try and get a real close-up look at the Restrepias, because they are pretty stunning if you can get close to them. And there is. We'll get the Restrepia out. Would you believe it? There's two others down there that are virtually constantly in bloom, and they happen to be between at the moment. There's a few buds and some blooms that have gone over. So there's only one out. I might not bother then. Anyway, so what's your light levels? Whether you've got light sun coming in through the windows, the angle of the sun will alter the area that it hits, and the area that it hits will be getting less. But that smaller area, the light level will be stronger, and obviously the closer to the glass the stronger it gets. So some things might need to back up a bit, and some things might need to move a bit closer, but you might need to be thinking about shading soon as well. Yeah, I certainly am. That end there is going to need shading soon. So I'll be watching the weather. If we're due 3 or 4 days of bright weather, it doesn't matter how warm it is outside, that's irrelevant. Sun hitting glass is not subject to the temperature that side of it. It's what happens to it when it gets in here. And I've got stuff right up close to the glass at the moment to get as much winter light as possible. Well, you know, we're heading towards the middle of February. It's no longer winter light, is it? You know, the middle of winter is a while ago now, you know. So you need to go careful with your light levels. And as I said, if you're using artificial lights to maintain, you know, natural daylight plus artificial light to give you a day length, the amount of artificial light you need is getting less. So it might pay to keep your eye on your timers. You know, don't really want your artificial lighting come on when the sun's still out, do you? It sort of defeats the object and would have little effect. Right, enjoy what's left of your weekend, and those of you who are due to go and get a jab, I've heard from 2 people now that have had quite nasty side effects. Well, not nasty side effects, because they're not going to be ever anywhere near as bad as actually getting the virus, are they? So if you're a bit icky for a day, lump it. I had arm ache. I had mine early in the morning. The rest of that day I was fine, but the day after my arm ached, and it was a noticeable thing. It wasn't like if you start doing something you forget about it. It was there, yeah, stiff. And quite honestly, I wouldn't have been able to stick my arm straight up in the air. My shoulder wouldn't have allowed that. It was stiff, you know. And then the day after, I could carry on and forget about it, sort of thing. So that's all I had. But I've known 2 people now that are, you know, not well. I think we'll just put it down as not well. I was talking to well, a couple that I know well from Orchid Society, and they both had upset tums. So there are a few little niggles with it, but I think it might depend which one you get. I mean, I had the Oxford one. Looking into the fact now that actually if you get a different one when you get your second jab, that might be a benefit rather than a nuisance. But everything's just so new at the moment. The data's not there, is it? We haven't got the long-term studies yet, but they're ongoing continuously. They're continuously looking at the data, trying to analyse it and get as much as they can. So there's people doing a good job out there, you know. They're always moaning about governments and what they do, but the rate this vaccination rollout is happening in this country is pretty damn impressive. So well done all those people involved. Good stuff. And the other sign of spring is not necessarily my snowdrop coming out. It's got nothing to do with day lengths whatsoever. Six Nations has started. Yay, rugby's on the telly. And I must admit, I do enjoy that. I might have a bit of a conflict this afternoon because it's, I think it's Wales versus Ireland this afternoon. But if it starts late and goes on too long, I've got a conflict because Ski Sunday is on, and I do enjoy Ski Sunday. It reminds me of the days when I used to go and what fun it was and all that. But yeah, so I don't profess to watch a lot of sport on the TV, but Six Nations I will watch. Anything that's at world level, like World Cup this, World Cup that, I'll watch that. I like watching Wimbledon. I don't know whether that's going to be on this year or not. All the flipping fuss that's caused the tournament that's going on at the moment, wherever that is, I've forgotten. Australia, I think it is, to lock everybody up because there was an outbreak. I think it was something daft, like a cleaner walked into the hotel and was tested positive, and they were in the hotel where everybody else was. They were right up in your rooms, shut the door. They do it properly in Australia. They're mucking about. No having a meeting next week to decide what to do in a further week's time. Now. Good stuff. Anyway, one day, all these little conversations that people have, how are you? Do you know how so-and-so's getting on? You know, all this, that, to do with these circumstances, it will be history. And it'll be in history lessons, and it will be consigned to history. And we'll get back to some sort of normality. And I think that's going to be this year sometime, and I think it might be a bit sooner than a lot of people think, simply because the vaccination rollout is going so well. Looks like targets are going to be hit. The only thing really that's going to mess it up is supply, isn't it? You know, if that dries up for one reason or another, then if you haven't got the stuff, you can't bang it in people's arms, can you? Yeah. I mean, my arm ached. I mean, we always say, you know, I mean, it's there's different types of injections. Some are like up into a pinch of skin, sort of at an angle. They tend to sting, but that's it. It's over and done with then. But the vaccination for the virus is a muscle jab, so it's straight in like that. And I think my nurse that did mine must have been an Olympic javelin thrower at one point, because she took a run up. I'm only joking. Anyway, watch the sun through your windows, watch the light levels, think about how much light your plants are getting and the fact that it's increasing all the time at a reasonable rate now. Make adjustments accordingly. And depending on your growing environment, that may be a little bit, it could be quite a bit, but you know your environment better than anyone else. So, I'll see you tomorrow for Everything in Bloom on the 8th. What little there is, but you know, something is better than nothing. See you next time.